Hi, and welcome to this mounting tutorial of the Cordona PQ8 Quickshifter for the CF Moto 450MT. And to begin with, it's a bit of work with all the panels and tank, and this bike has crash bars, so I begin by removing the bolt and nut for each side under the headlight panel, and then the tube just below the radiator. Next, loosen the nut furthest back on the crash bar. You'll need to hold the other side because this is a through axle, and we're not removing the axle itself, just the nut to free up the rear of the crash bar. Remove the bolts down here behind the radiator and you can take the crash bar off. Do the same on the other side. If you're working on your bike while watching this, just pause, catch up, and hit play again. To remove the radiator panels or the outer fairings, I start with a screw under the turn signal, then the one on the inside, level with the fork clamp. Remove the 3 last screws and the fairing will come off. The panel will still be attached because of the turn signal cable, so remove the panel carefully and then disconnect the cable by pulling the white tab toward you. Pause here if you need to and then repeat on the other side. Now remove the seat. I find it easiest to pull it straight back while having my knee against the rear tire. Now remove these 2 screws holding the inner tank panels. Then remove the 2 screws on the top of the upper tank panel. And on the inside here, you'll see 2 push clips on each side, so 4 in total. Carefully pry them out with a screwdriver. For the fuel cap, remove the 2 screws at the bottom and the 1 at the top. Take the key and remove the fuel cap. Place some paper so nothing drops into the tank. Then remove the upper panel and you can put back the fuel cap if you want to. Now remove the screws on each side underneath the panel you just took off. Then on both sides, remove these 2 bolts, this screw underneath, 3 screws on the inside of the panel, and note that the top one comes out from the outside, and 1 more down by the radiator. On the right side of the bike, remove the screw just above the oil cap. Release this connector by pulling the white tab back and free the cable from the zip tie. Now you can remove the inner panels on both sides. And the plastic clasps here remain on the tag sometimes, so use a removal tool to get them off and put them back onto the panels. Remove these rear tag bolts. Lift the back of the tank slightly and wedge something underneath to create a bit of room. And on the right side, disconnect the fuel hose and the 2 connectors here and here. Wiggle them off their mounts and just unplug them. I put paper underneath the fuel hose before disconnecting it, just in case it drips. On the left side of the tank, disconnect the hose. Use pliers if needed, and there's also 1 less hose at the front, and I couldn't get a good angle on it, but you'll see it, so disconnect that one as well. Now you can lift the tank off, and this is where the Cordona part begins. Start by measuring the distance between the shift peg and the ground. Here it is about 35 centimeters, so roughly 14 inches for my non-metric friends. And then note this, and then remove the shift rod. And now for the quick shifter. First, be aware that the parts use both right hand and left hand threads. And this is the quick shift sensor. So thread the stud in fully by hand and then back off at least 1 turn. That prevents constant preload on the sensor, which can cause false readings. And once it's backed off slightly, lock the nut. No torque spec is given, so I went back and forth with Cordona and landed at 10 Newton, which is about 88 inch-pounds. Do the same with the rod end, the uniball, and make sure the cable is aligned straight along the side. You can use Loctite on the nuts as per Cordona's instructions, but personally I don't. I just stick to the 10 Newton. Now the rod. Thread the end all the way in, then thread it into the sensor fully as well. Make sure that the lock nuts meet. When you rotate the rod while holding both ends still, you'll see the adjustment increase evenly on both sides. If you still have the original shift rod, you can match the length. Mount the new shift rod and apply Loctite to the shift rod bolts. Common torque here is 10 Newton or 88 inch-pounds. Bring the sensor cable up and inside of the frame toward the rear. And the wiring harness should sit roughly like this. The front connectors go to the injector and coils, and route the rear part under the bracket. Connect the orange plug to the ECU and the sensor loom to the SG switch/module. Connect the unit to battery negative terminal, so the black one, and it's easier to get the screw to catch threads if you hold the nut up. We'll mount the units with Velcro, so clean the surfaces first. Brake cleaner works amazingly. Then cut the Velcro to size and apply. Moving to the front. Disconnect the injector connector and plug in the gray connector from the harness. Then connect the original injector plug into the Cordona loom. It works as a piggyback. Then do the same for the ignition coils. Disconnect the originals, plug in the gray connectors, and connect the black ones to the bike's wiring. Tidy up the harness, secure it with zip ties, and trim the ends. Don't over-tighten, as cables don't like tension nor sharp edges. As you turn the rod, you'll see the shift peg move up and down. Adjust so the height matches where it was before, or match the length of the original shift rod. And make sure there's a bit of slack so the cable can move freely when you shift. And you should zip tie it too, but not too snug, as you don't want to restrict it. You can simulate a shift by pulling the peg down while rotating the rear wheel with the bike in gear at the same time. Make sure everything moves smoothly. And once you're happy, make sure each part is threaded about 10 millimeters, about 3/8 of an inch, on both rod and stud screw and sensor before tightening the lock nuts. And now you put the tank fairings and crash bars back on. I want to mention that since this Quickshifter is bike model specific, it is preset from Cordona. And if you'd like to fine-tune it and play around with shift force, kill time and such, it is all described in Cordona's instructions, which you can find on their webpage or simply by scanning the QR code that comes in the box. I'll stay quiet and you just follow along, pause whenever needed, and the torque specs for the CF Moto can be found in the workshop manual, and Google is your friend here. Here I use compressed air to get rid of any dirt before lifting the fuel cap. Also, when putting the seat back on, make sure the front hooks in properly and then give the rear a firm push down to lock it in place. That's all on how to mount the Cordona PQ8 Quickshifter on a CF Moto 450MT. Now remember to test drive your bike so that you see that everything functions as it should. And then I hope you enjoy your new Cordona Quickshifter.